coming up on this video.
So let's begin with the D&D character sheet, since that will be the bulk of this episode. So I'll randomly determine that one. Recruited into a lord's army, I rose to leadership and was commended for my heroism. So I'm just gonna use the mechanic that's called waylays. Determine a defining moment for the player character at an early age using a waylay with a solution. Then we'll have his teenage years using a waylay with a solution as well. Then determine a defining moment for the player character right before the campaign. Now we can assign the ability scores. Let's finish this with naming my character. What I thought I would use for the name is this cool little tool I found, Markov name generator. So you put a bunch of names into the algorithm, and it basically generates variants on that name. Hi everyone, I'm back. Today we're going to create a player character using Zach Best's CRGE, using BOLD, and using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So this video is going to be interesting for the coming campaign, those of you who are interested about that. And it will also be interesting for anyone who would like to integrate some of BOLD by Zach Best into their Dungeons & Dragons, or any fantasy, any similar, like RuneQuest, it would work for that. It would work for probably OSR. It would work for earlier D&Ds and anything in between, anything that resembles those systems. Instead of rambling on, let me just show you. So let's begin with the D&D character sheet, since that will be the bulk of this episode. So as you can see, I haven't yet come up with a character name. We'll come up with one during this video, but I did set a couple things to start us off with, because that's something which is of note about CRGE and all those solo randomly generated adventures. It's that you gotta know what you would like to make random and what you would like to predetermine. So since I'm gonna do a D&D campaign, I was thinking that I would like my first character, because I'm open to the possibility that he might die through the campaign. My first character, I want him to be more heroic than the other characters. I want him to be really, really courageous and really trying to do his best. And also I wanted them to be survivable, so I chose a Paladin. And I made him a human, so it won't make it too difficult with the other races. We can come up with the other races as we play. I thought it would work well if he was a folk hero. And if he's loyal good. Being loyal good, he's probably gonna try to take care of people, probably try to be, heroic. I'm probably gonna base his religion loosely on Christianity, since that's the religion I subscribe to. And, if religion's not really your thing, don't worry, it'll just be, minimal. It'll be in the background. It's not gonna be a catechism. It's not gonna be a religious lecture up in here. It's just gonna be fun role-playing. Human, folk hero, loyal good. So we know he's gonna have a speed of 30 feet. We know he's gonna have divine sense and lay on hands. We know his proficiencies. We know he's gonna have 2 languages. But other than that, we don't know him yet. And we're gonna determine a lot of those things. We're gonna have to determine the personality traits, the ideals, the bonds, the flaws. Of course, assign the ability scores. And I thought we would also follow one of Zach Best's little tutorials, little ideas for character creation. Using BOLD, we're gonna find a determining moment early in the character's life, something that happened during his teenage years, and something that happened right before the campaign. Moreover, I had the idea that maybe we would begin with a death march, right? Which it was a way to execute prisoners. Well, it's still a way to execute prisoners. You might have seen such a death march in Game of Thrones. With the death march, that would be somewhat related to the Grand Wizard's plans. And that we would begin in the desert. And that my character would begin with no equipment. Think it'd be kind of fun if we start with nothing. Kind of like in a Dark Souls game when you decide to be deprived. Oh yes, and also you might notice that usually in D&D you'll start a character by determining the race and then the class, and from the class you determine the ability scores. But I thought it would be more interesting if I start with personality trait, ideal, bond, flaws from the hero's background, and then I do the character history from BOLD, and at the very end we come up with the ability scores that make sense within that background. Though, you know, I'll make it so that my character will still be a viable paladin. And at the very end of the video, we'll end on naming the character. So, folk hero. You come from a humble social rank, but are destined for so much more. Already the people of your home village regard you as their champion, and your destiny calls you to stand against the tyrants and monsters that threaten the common folk everywhere. That gives me animal handling and survival as far as skill proficiencies. I will get one type of artisan's tool and land vehicles. Defining event. You previously pursued a simple profession among the peasantry, perhaps a farmer, miner, servant, shepherd, woodcutter, grave digger, but something happened that sets you on a different path and marks you for greater things. So I'll randomly determine that one. 10 is... Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay. Because 10 is recruited into a lord's army. I rose to leadership and was commended for my heroism. Awesome. Okay, this is gonna make it simpler for why I would be on a death march and why my character would be probably a strong guy that knows armors and shields. I get the feature rustic hospitality. Alright, so personality trait. Let me roll 1 4. I have a strong sense of fair play and always try to find the most equitable solution to arguments. I like that. That sounds very good for loyal good. Now let's go on to ideals. So we have either respect, fairness, freedom, might, sincerity, and destiny. I will outright ban might because my character is not evil. 2. Fairness. That's great. No one should get preferential treatment before the law, and no one is above the law. That's gonna be awesome for a paladin. Now we move on to bonds. And we have a 6. Oh, childhood sweetheart. The childhood sweetheart nostalgia. That's very interesting. I think it might go well with this idea of being a paladin. Maybe he vowed to be celibate. Well, we'll see when we get to the waylays what we roll. But that's what I'm thinking for the moment. Maybe decided to be celibate and it kind of causes a bit of nostalgia. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it's gonna be something else. Now we move on to flaws. 2. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm convinced of the significance of my destiny and blind to my shortcomings and the risk of failure. Ooh. Yeah, I like the idea that my character is gonna be a little bit brazen, a little bit overconfident, maybe he'll get himself into trouble, into danger. He won't be careful enough, because that would go well with my idea that if my character gets killed, then hopefully he will have had the time to interact with people and get some people to be inspired by him or to want to pick up the quest he's gonna embark on. So I'm thinking, yeah, that's gonna work out with what I have in mind. So yeah, I think it's gonna make for a great character. So now we move on to the bold part of this. So I haven't made a video about bold yet. Some of you guys might have read through the rules already. So I'm just gonna use the mechanic that's called waylays. I'll just show you. I have it on my board right here. So here's the rules for the waylays. In a nutshell, they help you come up with random situations that can either have a solution built in. So let's say your character is telling a story and you want to determine what that story is. Then you can do the waylay and then the waylay modifier and then the solution. For example, Zach gives us an example sentence. So you build a sentence out of all those randomly generated words. His example is ravenous, a cult overcome by a close friend. Our cult is there, and then ravenous would be somewhere here. And that would be the solution. But you can also come up with situations that don't have a built-in solution. For example, if you want to have something to start with for a new campaign, or to have an entry point in a CRGE story. And I would direct you to one of Zach Bess's articles on his website. Let me just pull it up. I have it saved. So just to give you a little idea, it's called Impromptu Adventure. And it's very cute. It tells you how he would use BOLD to come up with mini stories to play with his daughters. So he takes you through creating a little story for his daughters with the fairies. But what's very interesting is at the end there for solo players, and it tells you exactly how you can use waylays without the solution to actually do a solo campaign like the one I'm gonna be doing. But for now, we're gonna use the waylay rules for this, the character history. Determine a defining moment for the player character at an early age using a waylay with a solution. Then we'll have a similar thing, but for his teenage years, using a waylay with a solution as well. And trying to hook all the waylays together. And then determine a defining moment for the player character right before the campaign, chronicle, adventure, etc. And try to hook them all together. So a 10 and a 3 gives me, so 10 and 3, straying lost. 9 gives me bitter. And I'll do a solution. The solution, you roll 2d10, but you add them up. We have 18. And this is kind of awesome, because remember how my character is sort of obsessed with fate? Well, when he was a kid, he had something happen with fate. Look at that. Fate is the solution there. So the cryptic sentence BOLD gave us is straying lost, bitter, overcome by fate. And this happened in my character's childhood. So I gotta make sense of this. I can invert those two, so it could be bitter loss, overcome by fate, maybe. Alright. Now I'll come up with what that means. So let me take you into my process a little bit, into my thought process. So I'm thinking lost and bitter is probably that my character grew up without a father. But I kind of want to ask the Loom of Fate to help me elaborate on this. And I'm going to ask if my character's father was in the army or not. So did my character follow in the footsteps of his dad by going to the army, or did he grow up with without a father for another reason? Oh, and we're gonna be on 2 knowledge, by the way. 86. Interesting. Here's what I came up with. My character grew up without a father. His father was a soldier who died quickly into his career, so he never got to climb the ranks. And he and his mom didn't live with a lot of means. So he had to help his mom very early on, which is kind of how he started becoming kind of a folk hero in his little village. When his dad died, he was a young kid. He really took it personal. That led him to have a troubled childhood, and he was confused in his early adulthood until he acquired discipline by becoming a soldier for a good few years. He would finally start coming to terms with the death of his father when he quit the army to become a monk for a couple of years. So now we have also an explanation of how he became a paladin eventually. So here it is. Next up, it says in his teenage years, but I kind of covered this. So instead, this will be his career as a soldier. So the way I think about it, he was a child. He helped his mom with probably agriculture or something similar. Since it's medieval fantasy time, so most people were farmers. And then he joins the military, probably early, like at 15 maybe. Then he does like 10 years in the army until he's 25, let's say. And then a couple years as a monk, so let's say 3 years. So he will be like almost 30 or maybe beginning of his 30s. Let's roll some waylays. So 9 and 7, it's epic. Okay, awesome. And otherworldly. Okay. I feel like the dice are really in my favor right now. Okay, let's see the next one. So this is going to be the waylay modifier. 69. Fledgling. Sounds about right. And let's see how it gets overcome. Remember, we add those up. 1 and 5, it's a 6. Avoidance? Ah, very interesting. Epic, otherworldly fledgling, overcome by avoidance. Near the end of his life as a soldier, when he had become a man-at-arms, kind of a guy in armor basically, and a guy that's a little bit higher up in the grade, and he had 8 men in his charge. So this will account for why my character is gonna be charismatic. He and his little squad were sent on a supply run in a nearby allied village. They were sent to support the lord whose retinue he was part of. They arrived at the village, but they saw it was in ruins, and there was the stench of death and rot in the air. They felt like whomever did this was still there, so they hid themselves. They spied on a dark ritual taking place within the village. Red-robed figures dragging corpses from inside the homes and doing terrible things with them. Dancing and reveling in the bloodshed all night long, until from the pile of bodies emerged a twisted chimera full of hands, horns, and eyes, who shrieked into the black night. My character was deeply troubled by this. He felt dirty just witnessing those things, and yet it was hypnotic at the same time. This event made him reconsider his profession, and eventually this led him to the humble life of someone who lives in a monastery, of a brother. Alright, I like how this is going. We're getting some good motivations for all this. Let's top it all off with what happened just prior to the adventure. 2 are the foes and 4 soldiers. Oh! Oh my gosh, this is all tying together so well. This is uncanny. So what's the modifier here? 42. That is a noble. Huh. Okay, and what's the solution? 7 and 7. Weak attribute. Oh, I don't have a weak attribute yet, but this is gonna be either dexterity, intelligence, or wisdom. Yeah, I figure it's gonna be dexterity. Well, so noble. I don't wanna take it as meaning that they're like good in any way, not like noble in that sense, not like a noble gas or something. I think noble as in maybe they are from the prevalent race, and since I was thinking that maybe giants could be prevalent, because I think that would be kind of cool, then I think it's giants. Giant soldiers. Maybe giant soldiers coming to attack his monastery? Yeah, I'll ask the Loom of Fate if that's what it is. 52. Yes. My character joined a monastery that was on the edge of the giants' territory. For decades, the giants had been at peace with the humans. But one day, politics started to change, and the giants started to raid territories which they proclaimed were historically theirs. His monastery was one such location. The giants were more numerous and more mighty than the monks there. The monks tried to defend themselves, but to no avail. My character was torn between taking arms again or not. He hesitated, and he lost his opportunity. He and other monks fled. He survived that day, but he was eventually found in the wilderness by the giants' vanguard forces. They sneered at him, the valiant soldier. They kept him locked up until they had their next orders. My character felt awful. He felt useless. He felt craven, like he should have fought, even if that had meant his death. As a deserter, he would not be afforded a dignified death. Instead, he would be led into the desert nearby and would have to walk until his collapse. And so began the Death March, which will be the first scene. Very nice. I'm very happy with this. Let me just show you all the little bit of background we've come up with. So now let's just finish up what's missing. Yes, common and well, listen, I'll say that you can speak giant since he was in the territory just nearby. Now we can assign the ability scores. You might notice that I'm using the standard array of scores because I mean, I like to roll my scores using the usual method, but I feel like since I'm the only player at the beginning of this adventure, it's probably gonna really make it unbalanced if I don't use the standard scores. So that's what I'm doing. He has strength as his his highest skill, and then he has charisma in second. We determine dexterity is his least good score. Oh yeah, and by the way, all those numbers have had a +1 added to them because he's a human, and that's what they get. Gee, let me just check. I didn't make a mistake though. And there it is. I made a mistake. This should be a 9. Almost made a mistake, but thankfully I caught it. So 9 in dexterity. I'll go 13 in intelligence, 14 in constitution, and 11 in wisdom. So this is +3, I believe. Yes, that's it. And 9, that's -1. So that's -1 in dexterity. Oof. That's gonna be that's gonna be something. I'm sure it's gonna bite me in the butt in not too long. So he has 12 hit points. I didn't really say what kind of tool he was proficient in. I'll say he's proficient in weapon and armor maintenance. As a career soldier, I think that seems fair. And of course, he's gonna be proficient in using basic agricultural tools. But that pretty much goes for everyone. Let's finish this with naming my character. What I thought I would use for the name is this cool little tool I found on dungeon.bin.sh, which is a very useful place where you have tons of little fantasy generators. And one of them is this Markov name generator. So you put a bunch of names into the algorithm, and it basically generates variants on that name. We're gonna make our own list real quick, and I'm gonna mix with another generator. One of my favorite little website is Fantasy Name Generators. They have so many of them. So I'm gonna just generate a couple names that are relevant to my world. So let's start with giant names. So I'm gonna put all those names. And then I'll put some Nephilim names because they can also refer to giants or the offspring of fallen angels. Gonna train a bit of barbarian names. Medieval names. Yeah, that's good. So let's see what it gives us. For now, okay, that's Biram, Saleinin, Balias. Balias is actually pretty good. That might be the one I shed. That's funny. That's funny. Out of all those fancy names, and shed comes out. Frodest. That's almost Frodo. Zogvi. Wow. Rondolf. Jorn. Ketasur. They're not too awesome, those names, but I do like Balias. So our character shall be Balias, the Paladin. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was interesting for those of you who are looking forward to the campaign. But I hope it's also been interesting for those of you who just stumbled upon the video, searching about how you can do a background to your Dungeons and Dragons character. I hope this inspired you to try BOLD and CRGE as aids to do role-playing characters, to delve further into the characters you come up with. I think it really helped me. I never wrote such an extensive background on a character before. Not in an RPG, at least. And it didn't take long for me. Those cryptic little phrases you come up with BOLD, they're really helpful. So if you found that interesting, I'll definitely have a video on BOLD coming up in the near future. And of course, you'll have my campaign starting as soon as I can start it. I hope it's going to be in the next week or so, though I might do a little bit of paper animations like I did with my story in the post-apocalypse. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to all of this. This is an amazing journey into role-playing and my own imagination, and also into solo RPGs, because I only tried a couple scenes before. I never did a whole campaign around solo RPGing. So I'm figuring this out as I go along. I hope you are enjoying the ride as much as I am. And I hope I'll see you again in my next video. So if you like this, like my video and subscribe, and I'll be giving you more of that content very soon. Love you guys. Have a good day. Bye.